Thank you, Mr. Oak. Ms. Aske.
Good morning, Senators. Thank you for having me and for taking soil health seriously. My name is Katherine Aske, and I run an organic farmer training program at the University of British Columbia. I'm also a researcher who has been part of a project analyzing the impacts of investor farmland ownership and concentration across the prairies. That's run out of the University of Manitoba. I am here to argue that it is not foreign farmland ownership we need to be concerned about with regard to soil health, but farmland speculation as a whole, much like Stuart just said, whether that be foreign, domestic, or even local. Farmland investors may differ as individuals or in investment structure, but on the whole have one thing in common: a desire to extract financial value from the land and the work of the people who live on it. It is difficult to know the impacts of any kind of investor ownership on soil health in Canada at present because provincial governments have not been using their land titles data to track and publicly report on changing farmland tenure patterns. This means that we as the public do not know how much land is owned by investors. In some provinces, university researchers have even been barred from accessing this public data. For example, in Alberta, our research team was told it would cost us $50,000 to access it. More than we could afford. Without this data, I conducted qualitative research instead and interviewed over 50 grain farmers across the province in 2019-2020, ranging from 230 to 33,500 acres in size. The only province where we do have a sense of the extent of investor farmland ownership and concentration is in Saskatchewan. And that is because members of our research team, led by Dr. Annette Desmarais, accessed the land titles data, analyzed it, and publicly reported on the findings. They revealed a 19-fold increase in investor farmland ownership from 2002 to 2018, up to nearly 1 million acres. Further, prairie research has shown that even a small number of investor purchases drive farmland prices beyond what most farmers can afford, which then propels high debt loads, farmland concentration, short-term rental contracts that limit how farmers can practice, and even farmers themselves relating to the land like a speculative asset, all of which have associated environmental impacts. We now know that Robert Angelic, who's here with us today, is the largest landowner in the province and perhaps in the country. As he indicated, his company owns over 233,000 acres in Saskatchewan, almost as much land as billionaire Bill Gates owns across the US. I mean, no disrespect to you personally, Mr. Angelic, but this kind of concentrated wealth and power brings us back to a kind of neo-feudalism that or to a neo-feudalism, a new feudalism that has devastating effects for our democracies, for our communities, and for the health of the land. You don't have to take it from me. A recent survey of 400 prairie farmers found that nearly 80% of respondents see investor farmland ownership as negative or very negative for their local communities. Mr. Angelic just spoke to the kinds of improvements that his company does on the land. There's a video on his website that speaks to that, similarly to improvements on 22,000 acres around Yorkton. In the video, they talk about, the clearing of trees and bush and creating fields that are open and cleared with sloughs dried up, allowing for farming corner to corner. And this means theoretically more income for farmers through higher crop production in the short term and thus higher rental rates that can be charged. And Mr. Angelic's company is absolutely not unique in viewing improvement on the land in this way. However, as soil begins to erode due to a lack of trees to block the wind or increasingly intense rainstorms and a lack of ability to handle them, these anticipated yields may not be realizable, and reversing these changes will take decades. My interviewees in Alberta describe various types of domestic investor owners and the largest farmers doing the same things, and were deeply concerned about the corner-to-corner approach. Bush lines are coming down everywhere, they told me, as farmland speculation has created both pressures and incentives to do so. One of my farmer interviewees told me, and I quote, "Some days we will have days and days of wind, and I often wonder, is it because there's nothing to stop the wind or slow it down? The wind was always here, just the bush lines and those tree stands and everything helped stop the wind. We never had soil drifting ever in this area, now we do." After widespread drought and ecological collapse in the 1930s on the prairies, the government stepped in and established the Prairie Farm Rehabilitation Administration. Western Canadian farmers were given free saplings and support to plant bush lines, and an estimated 600 million trees were planted through the 20th century. This program ended in 2013, and we are now forgetting our history and regressing once more with so-called improvements to the land, removing bush lines at a time of ever-growing climate crisis. To close, I see your hands up, Senator Black. Thank you. I'm grateful for the Standing Committee's research and concern, but question the emphasis on foreign farmland owners and suggest it is farmland speculation on the whole that presents a major concern for soil health and much more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Angelic, Mr. Oak, and Ms. Aske. We'll proceed to questions now from